true or false. And they were really, really weird. I remember just thinking it was so bizarre, but thank God that's over. And many, many years later, I was having a conversation with a crust punk friend of mine. He was the son of traveling ministers growing up. And so, like me, was pretty well versed in theology and practices of his respective church. And I told him my story, and he was like, dude, they were gonna exorcise you. It had never occurred to me. A lot of the questions were about demons, but that had never occurred to me that that's what was going on there. And why I maybe had an aversion to therapy for 20 years. And I don't want anyone listening to this story to think that my mom would have ever signed me up for that level of traumatic experience. That was not my mom's brand of Christianity. But I did not come out to her as queer, or at the time bisexual, in high school because I was terrified of conversion therapy. I didn't put it past my mom to send me to pray away the gay camp if she found out. So I kept that pretty close. It's funny, I thought I was totally closeted in high school, but have since received messages from friends who are just like, I loved how out you were. Cool. So when I got to college, both my mom and I had a lot more freedom. My mom's approach to parenting was to control every aspect of my life as she could, is to surveil me as much as possible. So I had that lifted and was able to come to Laramie in college to be me. And my mom was left with this child extension of herself sized void to deal with. And instead of filling it unhealthily or coming after me in new ways, she did try to ground me in my dorm room when she found out I drank, so there was that. But I said I wasn't gonna do jokes, I can't help it. So instead of being unhealthy with this void, she grew quite a bit around it. She found new hobbies and her social circle expanded. And suddenly I'm coming home from college to visit her and meeting her at the gay bar for happy hour because her friend is bartending. And my senior year of college, I finally came out to her and her response was, I knew. And I was really angry in that moment because at the time I thought if she knew for as long as she said that she did, why didn't she create a safe space for me to talk to her about this? And I realize now that my mom's changes in behavior and her changes in outlook were gradual, but they were her attempts at making a safer space for me. So still, I wasn't allowed to bring my college girlfriend to my graduation dinner. My college girlfriend, my now best friend, and we dated for 2 weeks, but I still really wanted to bring her to my college graduation dinner with the family, and my mom said no. I saw progress, but there were still problems. 2 years ago, almost exactly, I came into my identity as a non-binary person. It was right after Pride Month, and I thought the timing was really funny, but I think it's because of this community and these events and the way that we come together as a community that I was able to find that. I never felt more like myself than those first few moments of gender euphoria. It was like I was seeing myself and being myself for the first time, and I still haven't told my mom. Through a lot of therapy, through a lot of reparenting of myself, self-healing, a lot of inner child work, it's very close to the surface. I'm able to have a pretty positive relationship with my mother. I spoke with her earlier today. Just last week even, we were at a wedding and one of my childhood friends, and all weekend at all the wedding events, my mom was wearing the progress flag pin on her lapel, even at the wedding itself. And it was a weird, interesting mix of communists and alt-right people at this country Nebraska wedding. I was told specific people that I maybe shouldn't talk to unless I wanted to get into an argument. I don't know. But my mom wore that pin, and I was talking to one of the bridesmaids with my mom, and my mom was trying to hook her up with my cousin, showing her pictures of him on Instagram, and she was like, yeah, he's not really my type. And my mom's like, oh, are you like not into like military guys? She said, no, I'm into women. We laughed about it for a second, and then she said, thank you for wearing that pin today. I felt comfortable telling you that. And I had to break away from the conversation for a moment because I found myself upset. And I was upset that my friend felt comfortable having this conversation while I have this conversation looming over me about sharing my gender identity with my mom. And I've thought about that over the past few years quite a bit, about this conversation that we might have. And it feels like there's a lot of pressure to be fully out. You have to be out to your family, or you have to be out to your parents or your loved ones. And I've realized since that I get to choose who I invite into certain places of my life. And I'm not yet ready to invite my mom into that space. And I wish I had more catharsis for you here. I wish I could say I have a plan and it's great and everything's gonna come up rainbows. But I don't. And instead, I'm at this place of acceptance, or at least I'm trying to be, in that all of those really shitty experiences growing up and that harm that I might have experienced because of my mom was her doing the best she could with what she had, especially as I learned more about her upbringing and about the fear that she had from her parents if she stepped out of line. And I don't know if I will have this conversation, but I'm comfortable not knowing at this point. But I think in acknowledging that my mom has grown, giving her grace in the areas where she has made mistakes has allowed her to grow further. I think that my mom is living evidence that just because you are born of a certain generation or brought up a certain way, that you can't change your mindset and you can't change your ideas. I see it all the time with some close family friends who used to tell me all the time about how all of our gay friends are going to hell and are now very welcoming and opening and have left their respective churches that believe that. And I want to leave you all with this sense of hope that the work that we do, that the community that we are, is making an impact, and that we can continue to work towards change. And we've seen a lot of really great change. And it's scary right now, but it's still worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Madison. Let's keep clapping for all our storytellers tonight. We got Daniel, Raven, Jay, Jules. Who am I forgetting? Who are you pointing to? Oh, yes, Daniel. How could I forget? Beautiful stories. Thank you so much. We are going to check to see if there are some names for the wild card. Maybe I'll buy us a little time because the Bulls in the back and you're just trying to get some last minute recruits. So we, to remind you, we do have the event with, shoot, is it Better or Healthy Wyoming? I think it's Better Wyoming in October. And the theme, that makes sense, because the theme is how to better Wyoming. So I really love Eva's and Nate's suggestion on nominating a storyteller. I'm going to kind of get into that a little bit on how to recruit more of you to sign up. So let's see, over 70 people have shared a story with us at Tales since we first started in October of 2018. And I think that's a huge success. It means over 70 people in little Laramie, Wyoming felt empowered enough to share a piece of their life story with us. We at Tales at the Taphouse believe that everybody has a story to tell, and that sometimes the only thing hindering that sharing is the lack of a platform in which to share. So we created that platform for LGBTQ+ and women and non-binary individuals. And 22 events later, we're learning there's maybe some more obstacles, not just a lack of platform. So September, leading up to our Story Slam event on the 24th, we will be offering free and weekly writing and storytelling workshops. So it might not just be the fear of public speaking keep holding you back, but maybe you want some more coaching and tips on how to tell a story, the imagery and importance of the details within a story, as well as kind of the performance and delivering the story. And then we also have a fabulous workshop who will cover the topic of impacts and the power of storytelling within communities. So again, that's free, and we want any and all community members to participate. If you have a story that you then really want to work on for the September event, then we'll have some one-on-one coaching for you. So stay tuned to our social media about the dates and locations for those workshops, and save the date, September 24th, for the Slay the Moment Story Slam. Okay. Yeah. We are doing the drawing. Who do we have here? Eileen? Yeah. Thank you, Eileen.
Okay, there's water. That's exciting. Okay, this is the result of impulsive decisions. Right. Story of my life. Okay. So I wanted to just come up here for a minute because I'm inspired by you. How old are you? You're 10? So I grew up in Laramie since I was 2. And what I want to talk about just quickly is the difference that I've noticed between growing up when I did in Laramie and the way that my little sister, who is now 16, is growing up today in Washington State. I want to say thank you to the people who make this happen, because when I was growing up here, this did not exist. I was shocked to come back here 2 years ago in 2020 and see my first Pride in Laramie last year. It was my first Pride in Laramie. I'm 37, and it was my first Pride in Laramie. And I know I was gone for a long time, but coming back and seeing what had happened while I was gone, it blew my mind. And then I met a dear friend who's sitting there looking beautiful, and they told me about this organization that they work for, where they go into schools and they help young people cope with queerness and violence and stuff. And I think I said to them at the time, where were you? And I didn't mean it personally, but like, where were you? Because when I grew up in Laramie, I've been gay since I could walk. And I knew that. I didn't have a name for it till I was 18 or whatever, or 17, I don't know, whatever. But I never saw representation. We didn't have zilch. I never knew what it was. I didn't have a word for it, you know? And then I came to this word. This is maybe a trigger warning I should have given you. I'm going to talk about what bisexual means to me and how I have a problem with the word. No offense to anyone here. I grew up thinking, oh, well, I must be bisexual then. And I grew up in the era of Ryan Reynolds' movies bisexuality. So party favor bisexuality, as I like to call it, where being bisexual means that you're the sideshow for the men in the room. You're the sideshow for the straight men. You're the entertainment of the evening. Kiss her, yeah, you know, take it off, let me watch, I'll pay you. I heard that shit all the time growing up because I had ass-length blonde hair. I was a full-time dancer. I was flirtatious and openly bisexual in my senior year of high school. I was like walking around with a fucking target on my back, you know, for these men that I went to parties and they were like, and I got my first job as a dishwasher here in Laramie at a restaurant that used to exist called Tommy Jack's. I was 19 years old, of the former description person, openly bisexual to a bunch of rabid straight guys from Cody. And it was violent, it was bad. I fought people off. Let's just say that. I fought off men. I was 19. Ugh. And I had that experience over and over again, being openly bisexual at that time and just getting the most disgusting things said to me because of the way I looked and being openly bisexual. I got rid of that, by the way. I didn't come back to Laramie looking like that. I shed that stuff along the way to get tough, right? I built myself a nice little suit of armor, and then I discovered the word queer 5 years ago? I know I'm behind the times, but 5 years ago or something, I moved to Washington State. Like, whoa. And I was like, oh, this is really, wow, queer. Wait, non-binary? Like, what's that? Oh, pronouns? Cool. So I figured all this stuff out. And then I started saying queer because in my mind, it's like, figure that out. Label me now. You know, what? You can't put a label on that, can you? You can't pay me to entertain you at a party because you don't know what it means. So that was my whole attitude, was like, yeah, queer, tough, you, like, try me. And no one does. I've felt invisible for years. I felt like no one walks up to me anymore. No straight guys whistle at me anymore on the corner of Laramie. I don't get catcalled. It's been years. And so I built this toughness. Okay, this story is about my little sister. So this is who I am, this is where I'm coming from. I grew up, I went away, I got tough. I moved to Washington State, and then I got to know my little sister. She's 19 years younger than me. Total generational split, like massive. But she's amazing. And I got to live next door to her in Washington for 5 years and get to know her coming up in her adolescence. And I would say things to her, you know, she's in junior high, and I'd be like, so how are you? Oh, I'm great. I'd be like, no, how are you though? Like, how are you really? Like, you're in ninth grade, how are you actually? No, I'm actually fine, I have great friends. I'm like, oh, shit. Like, how are you? Like, I was on suicide watch. How are you? Tell me the truth, come on. Anyway, she's great, she's fine. She's flourishing, right? It blows my mind. So I moved back to Laramie. I had to leave her, and it broke my heart a little bit. So I go back to visit last year, and she and I had a little sister date. And we went to my friend's bakery, and we got a whole bag of cookies, and we go to a park, whatever, state park thing. We're sitting on the grass. We're just relaxing. We're catching up. And she says the damnedest thing. She looks at me, she's eating a cookie, and she says, so Dad thinks I'm gay. And I just stopped, and I was like, how do I handle this? What do I say? I said, because we've never talked about my sexuality. It never came up. She's met my friends in Washington. She was there. She came over to visit the night that I hosted a chosen family Christmas. She's met my trans best friend. She's met my queer boyfriends. She's met all sorts, you know, she knows who I am. We just never talked about it, right? And so Dad thinks I'm gay. And I was like, well, why, what, how, why is that? Like, what would make him say, what does he say? Like, because my father is kind of oddly has always been a big supporter of me. I came out to him, and whoever told the story, he's like, I know. I was like, damn it. I wanted it to be a surprise, but he knows, and he's lovely, and he's always been supportive. So it's not surprising to me, but I was like, why? And she goes on to tell this odd little story about how whenever her mother asks her if she's interested in anybody, then my dad says to her, are you interested in any girls or your girlfriends? And her mother says, no, Fiona likes boys. And then my dad says, really? And so Fiona's in the middle of this, not being able to give her opinion. Her parents are telling her what she likes. Her mother's being conventional, and my father's, you know, shoving the knife in it and saying, you know, what if she's not, you know, because the other one's not, so hey. And I'm like, I said, well, I'm not surprised, Fiona. I mean, Dad's super supportive. He's always supported me. You know, he learned pronouns in his 60s, and he's conservative. Like, you know, he's amazing. And I was like, well, what's the deal with your mom then? Like, how do you feel about that? And she says, well, you know, Mom's Mom grew up in Cheyenne. And I was like, what does that mean? You're 15-year-old? Like, what do you think that means? She's like, she's a little more conservative. I'm like, but Dad's from Oklahoma. Like, what the fuck? And so we talk, and I was like, I just looked at her and I said, well, are you? Where are you at? Fiona, what's going on? Like, what do you got? And she's like, well, I don't know. And I was like, cool. I was like, good. I'm glad you don't know. You want another cookie? Like, that's like, cool. I said, you have any, you want to talk about it? And she was a little bit nervous. And I was like, well, what are your friends like? How's your friend group? Are they supportive? And she says, oh my God, I can't even keep track of anybody's pronouns anymore. We change so often that nobody really knows. And I was just like, it just blew my mind for a second. And I didn't say this, but I was like almost crying on the inside thinking, God, thank you for being able to grow up like this. I'm so inspired by her generation and younger people, these beautiful young beings. A lot of them, not everybody, unfortunately, which is heartbreaking, but so many of them have people they can see and they can question it and they can come, they don't even have to come out. It's already a river. Their life is a river. It comes in, it comes out, it's fluid, nobody's defining anything. And they just, it's amazing, and I'm just mind blown. I'm not jealous, but it gives me like a deep sense of hope. I'm a little jealous, but it gives me a sense of hope, you know, that they can just try things on and explore and find themselves early, and lose themselves again and find themselves again. And anyway, so she and I took a little walk after that conversation, and she didn't ask me, but I knew she was curious, so I just started talking about how I felt. And she just listened. And I told her about the whole story that I just told you before, about growing up. And I told her about how I found the word queer, and it's like her second word she's ever, she knows that word. She grew up with that word. It's her, Anyway, I felt that it was a total gift for me to be able to, it's an honor to be her big sister, because I want to be open to her for every single conversation she ever wants to have. I want to answer every single question. I want to tell her more than she wants to know. I want to honor her, any identity that she comes up with. I want to honor it. Anything that she feels like, however she wants to dress. And that's what I want. That's what Pride is for me, I guess, these days, is simply honoring that space, and especially for younger folk, because I never had it. Am I still allowed to keep going? Okay, do one more. The only example I ever had. So I went to school on UW campus at the lab school, and I was young. I was in junior high. My parents had a company. We had a family business. One of the women that worked for my parents was a woman named Teresa. She was an art major, art master's, I think, getting her in painting and whatnot, and she was the first lesbian that I had ever met. And she was super open, super, super out, and I was fascinated. I was in 8th grade. And anyway, while I was in 8th grade, Matthew Shepard was killed. And I was going to school on the UW campus, and my older sister, she went to school with the guys that did it. And it was very close to us. So my mother and I were driving to school one day, up Ivinson, and we look over, and I saw these bright neon signs in front of the courthouse, and all these people yelling, and all these police. And I said, what is that? And she's like, oh, that's Fred Phelps. I said, who? And she told me about it, and she stopped. She pulled over. She said, do you want to see it? And I said, okay. And she talked to me about it, and I'd never seen those words before. I didn't know what they meant. And we went to school, and it was very strange. And back then, the prep kids, the lab school kids, were allowed to walk over to the student union every day for lunch. It was very cool. Got into 8th grade, you got to go to the food court. So we are, my friends and I are walking over to the union for lunch. And there they are again, Fred Phelps, in front of the Union with all of his people. We were kind of scared. We didn't know, we were walking, and I think they protested a couple times up there. The second time that we walked over there, a little different. We walked by, and we could hear them, but we couldn't see them because there were these people with these huge angel wings that I'm sure you guys have heard about. Maybe some of you saw this. And we're like, what's going on? So we walk over, and we're a little freaked out still, and all of a sudden I hear, Eileen, Eileen. And I look up, and it's Teresa, the woman who works for my parents. She's an angel. And I know her, I've known her for years, and she's like, hey, are you okay? And I was like, I don't know. I think so. I was like, hi. And she's like, hi, you want a hug? And she gave me a big old hug, and I was like, it's a gay angel. I still think that in my mind. I was just like, oh, shit, I'm safe now because Teresa is here, and like, she'll protect me. I had this idea in my head for years of like, these gay angels. And like, anyway, that was the only example that I had, and it was a very positive one of that growing up. So I'm thrilled that my little sister and this lovely little person sitting right here have a room full of examples and beautiful parents who nurture them, and that's all I got.
Thank you so much, Eileen. Thank you. I'm just gonna brief more thank yous, and then that's a wrap tonight. Thank you, Tess, for sticking around after and chatting with people if they wish, and for giving the announcements today. Also, Divine Eats for the sandwiches in the back. Huge supporter. Divine Eats is a huge supporter of Tales, and we love Linda and her crew, so thank you. And as always, thank you to storytellers past, present, future. And I say this, and it's ridiculous, but there is no event without you. So we love you, storytellers, and thank you for being vulnerable with us. It does make a difference, it really does. So thank you again to all our storytellers, and thank you for being here tonight, and all of you on the live stream. It's a great community.